I know we've got the earnings call tomorrow, and I'm very excited to see what Tesla announces there, but I couldn't wait because there's just too much on my mind surrounding the Cybertruck driver display. So again, this is a prototype, it's not a production model, so you can't look at this and treat it as a guarantee, although I would say the likelihood is certainly growing now that we're closer to production. Tesla is updating this prototype of the Cybertruck to be road legal and likely closer to the actual production model, and we're now seeing, thanks to a higher resolution video of what was posted yesterday, simultaneously some workers taking pictures of the Cybertruck being offloaded at Giga Texas, a screen directly behind the yoke that looks incredibly similar to the same screen and dash design that you'd find on a Model S or X refresh. Obviously the windows are fairly tinted, but luckily someone was able to get a pretty good shot with the window down, and they do see a screen directly behind the yoke. So of course there's lots of good news that comes around with this, like, oh my god, the Cybertruck is gonna have freaking 3 screens in the front seat. Yeah, 17-inch landscape display alongside driver display, plus rear view mirror is not actually a mirror. There's another screen up there. Why stop there? You know, why not also have a back screen for the second row passengers? So we have 4 screens within the entire Cybertruck. That would be kind of cool, and honestly not that far-fetched if you consider that the screen layout right now for the Cybertruck is actually aligning a lot closer to the Model S and X than it is the Model 3 or Y. Obviously, there's no current plans that we know of Tesla wanting to add more screens inside the Model 3 and Y. They don't have driver displays. I personally don't think they need them. It's not that important. But it's also making me wonder why Tesla would add this extra complexity, right? I always thought production model was about kind of streamlining things and trying to make simple manufacturing processes so that you could bring the Cybertruck into scaling production. Wouldn't adding an extra display somewhat complicate the manufacturing process and drive the price of parts up? Well, I actually have a theory that probably sides on the bit of a downside here, but I'm honestly under the belief that the Cybertruck pricing is probably going to start aligning a lot closer to the Model S and X than it is the Model 3 and Y. Therefore, adding the additional display is really not that far-fetched or very much an impact on the overall cost of the Cybertruck, because, you know, Tesla removed all the pricing from the webpage, likely because the demand was already crazy high, and those prices that were unveiled in 2019 are likely not accurate anymore. For one, because there's been a lot of inflation since then that Tesla didn't anticipate, and for two, we know that whenever Tesla sees a huge increase in demand for something, they have no problem raising the price for it, because if you know you're gonna sell every single model you sell, why would you sell it for lower? That's just leaving money on the table, and that's why we've seen the Model S and X go up in price substantially, because so many people are ordering them, plus Tesla's having a hard time going through production ramp up, which I don't think the Cybertruck is gonna be that different. We already have like 2 million orders put in. Granted, most of them won't go through, I know, but even if 75% cancel, Tesla is not going to have enough production capacity to meet demand for a long time. On top of that, the mass production of the 4680 batteries is definitely taking longer than Tesla originally expected, which means because there's a lot of crazy pent-up demand for the Cybertruck, especially now that we know it's going to have self-presenting doors, kind of like a Model X, and rear-wheel steering, which has never been done on a Tesla before. This is really living up to the hype that Elon has talked about of it being their best product ever. You know, best durability, best range, best practicality, so why not go all out with the interior a tad bit on the Cybertruck? I'm hoping this could also mean ventilated seating options and maybe wireless chargers in the back seat as well. So I'm personally predicting, because, you know, Elon said they're gonna start with the quad motor variant, that the price is gonna be close to $90,000, maybe even higher for the original insanely high performance Cybertruck. And if you're paying $90,000, Tesla adding that extra driver display probably isn't really going to be that complicated, and there's likely going to be lots of numbers and stats that Tesla will fill those screens with, given the Cybertruck is going to be used for towing a lot, not to mention he said it will have a crab mode feature where it can move diagonally, and I'm guessing the other reason they're okay with adding the driver display is because they knew from the beginning they wanted the Cybertruck to have a yoke. So for those people out there that despise the yoke and was hoping that wouldn't happen on your Cybertruck, I'm sorry. I actually think the likelihood of them adding a driver display but also adding an option for a full steering wheel, not super likely. I think Tesla has been satisfied enough with the response they've gotten on the yokes with the Model S and X, where, you know, a bunch of people hated it at first and then they tried it and went, okay, yeah, it's actually, I got used to it kind of quick. It's not controversial enough for them to consider removing it, considering how many people keep ordering Teslas with yokes anyway. But I know pickup trucks are used differently and people back them up to trailers, and it's not exactly the same use case as a Model S and X, but personally, personally. That's why I'm hoping that the yoke can be accommodated a bit better with the rear wheel steering. I'm no engineer or anything, but I know that because crab mode is an option, it means that Tesla at least has some way of tinkering with the rear wheel steering option, and my thought process is that when you're on the freeway, the back wheels won't turn at all, so, you know, you can easily change lanes when you need to and make those big turns at high speeds, but likely when you're in a smaller parking lot or backing up to a trailer and you need that tight maneuverability, that's when rear wheel steering will kick in, and because the turning radius of the Cybertruck will be so tight, you won't have to do these hand-over-hand motions with the yoke. That's something the Model S and X can't do, but I think the Cybertruck will be capable of, so it's not necessarily steer-by-wire, where you can dynamically change the turning radius depending on the circumstance or the speed of the vehicle, but I do think rear wheel steering will allow the yoke to adapt to different circumstances, so it won't be that big an issue. And if you go back and watch Elon talk about the yoke during the Model S unveiling, the first thing he listed when he talked about why they adopted the yoke was that it allowed for an unobstructed view of the driver display. Now, the interesting part about that was the Cybertruck was unveiled with the yoke, but of course there was no driver display, which meant the main advantage of having a yoke was not really present here, and the only reason to have the yoke on the Cybertruck in Tesla's mind is it looks cool and futuristic, so it goes with the aesthetic of the rest of the vehicle. I'm fine with that personally, because I can get comfortable with the yoke, but now that they have a driver display, keeping the yoke actually makes a ton of sense. However, I will be the one oddball out there. I know absolutely no one's gonna agree with me on this. You can hate me all you want, that's fine, but I actually still kind of prefer the clean, minimal look of the prototype interior. I knew it was probably impractical from the start that Tesla was gonna stick with that, but just having like a one big marble countertop with a big 17-inch display in the middle and nothing else, like that was, for the longest time, always my favorite Tesla interior. My favorite interior of any vehicle, actually, just because I care about minimalism and I like how simple it looked. So I'm slightly bummed that we're not gonna get that interior that I love so much, but I do agree the driver display is still super practical. Plus, because the Cybertruck is so much wider and larger than all of the rest of Tesla's vehicles, it probably wasn't practical to try to put all of the software on that singular display in the middle, because you're probably going to be looking a bit further away than you would on a Model S or X, where that 17-inch display is right there and right next to you. So given it's a wider vehicle, having a display right behind the yoke that gives you your speed and your autopilot information and your watt hours per mile and all that stuff is probably going to be immensely useful driving a vehicle so big. So again, because it's a prototype, this could just be something they slapped on there last minute because they want to test it and validate the powertrain, and maybe that's not going to make it to the production model, but given they're willing to put, you know, side view mirrors and windshield wipers on this model, I actually think the likelihood of the Cybertruck getting a driver display is now pretty likely, even though I also think the pricing is not going to be very good, because so far Tesla only puts driver displays on their higher priced vehicles, which to me means $90,000 at least for the quad motor Cybertruck. Maybe when they do the dual motor later, they'll have a $65,000 option, but I frankly just don't envision a world where the Model Y ends up costing more than the Cybertruck. I just don't think that's gonna happen, and given the Model Y currently starts at $59,000, yeah, absolutely expect the Cybertruck to cost more than that. What are your guys' theories on the use case of the driver display? Do you think it makes a lot of sense? Do you think Tesla will custom design the software to look like it did for the prototype Cybertruck screen, or do you think they'll carry over a lot of the Model S and X software into the Cybertruck now that both those vehicles are gonna have 17-inch landscape displays with driver screens? All that good stuff. Let me know what you're thinking down below. Thank you to everyone supporting the channel on Patreon. It seriously helps a ton. And to everyone just watching the videos, that helps a lot too. Take care. Have a great day.